And it's recording.
Good, good.
You good? Alright, so this is gonna be a. Do you want it to be a spoiler for your review, or do you want to go a little bit in depth into it?
Mm, let's go in depth.
Alright, so uh, for those of you who I have a small audience, so I actually did post a quick video about when Sponge Out of Water first. The first poster of it came out. I'm thinking of deleting that because it's irrelevant now.
Oh, was it like your first impressions video
Yeah,
on how you didn't really like it because it was CGI?
yeah.
When there really wasn't even that much in the movie, surprisingly.
Yeah, I think this is how false advertisement can actually work for a film's benefit. Because they pushed this thing, in terms of marketing, they pushed it to where the whole film would be like this, but no, only how much of it,
20 minutes, I believe, like 20 minutes.
yeah, 20 minutes of it. Although it felt a lot longer to me, but I don't know.
It was around the last third,
Yeah. So, you saw it the day after it came out.
right?
I saw it the week after it came out. I was thinking of seeing it the same day, like that Saturday, but things just sort of came up, plans happened, and then I finally saw it. The same weekend Kingsman came out, so I'll see
And
that
50
next week.
Shades of Grey.
Yeah, because I want to pay for porn.
No, nobody wants to pay for porn. Of course not.
All right, so uh, was your theater packed? Because mine was.
Mine was fucking packed.
Yeah, it was a full
Seriously.
house.
Well, of course it was. It was SpongeBob.
Yeah.
SpongeBob is a fucking sellout.
If SpongeBob isn't a sellout, Viacom is doing something wrong.
Exactly.
All right, so
Just think of the toys that they'll make from this.
yeah. So the thing about this movie is that I was sitting there and I was checking my phone to see the time, not because I wanted the film to end, but because I thought for some of it I thought it was a slow movie for at least a little while until it started to pick up a bit.
Yeah, definitely slow.
Well, which is better than just outright fast sometimes.
And it kind of dragged on a bit with some of the jokes.
Uh yeah, the dolphin joke was definitely one of those.
And the one where, like, yeah, definitely. That was a part of it.
No, I just
Where they
like
go in
the
time four times.
No, I just like that
Four times
Jupiter
in a
and Saturn
row.
just exploded.
That was fun.
Yeah.
I don't even know why they did
It's
that.
SpongeBob. It's random.
And that's what's always made it fun.
Yeah, it's just
That's where
yeah. In
SpongeBob's
fact, this
always
is
had charm.
it's like when you look at this movie, it's an everything type of movie because there's just so much stuff in it.
It felt like it was trying to be an extended episode
Yeah,
of the show,
yeah.
whether it be from the generation that people claim to be so perfect,
Or
or
the one
whether it
that's
be
going
from
on
the recent
now.
generation.
It sort of just felt like an everything type of movie.
And like it was trying to be for everyone, and it didn't fail at that.
No, although there's one thing I want to point out during the movie is that the clouds are no, not the clouds. The sky actually
The
changed.
flowers in the
The
sky.
sky actually tend to change depending on the situation. Like when things were starting to look better, the sky started to appear more blue, but they were still grayish, which I thought was a nice touch.
It's kind of like the Red Sky episodes from the original
80s
Teenage Mutant Ninja
the
Turtle
Turtles
show.
cartoon, yeah. But
And then,
in terms of plot, I tend to feel like it was pretty focused for the most part, as random as it got.
yeah, I mean, there were some things that kind of left some plot holes.
Like what?
Like, they still had the Squidosaurus Rex at the end.
That was genius.
That was
No, I just like how
hilarious.
Patrick comes back and he's like, "I get you a gift from the dawn of time," and then the Squidosaurus just comes out.
That was
I even like
hilarious.
how Squidward named it too. Like he was the one to go, "Yeah, I coined that."
Definitely. One of my favorite things about this movie is that they actually use the characters better than the first movie.
Yeah, the first movie barely used any of them.
And this time,
And this
everybody
time,
gets
everyone
their
was
shit in.
used.
They have SpongeBob and Patrick, of course. They have Plankton this time as one of the actual protagonists, sort of.
Yeah,
They have Mr. Krabs as more of a role.
yeah.
Squidward has more of
Squidward,
a role.
Sandy, and his own role.
Sandy finally gets her fucking credit,
Yeah,
even though she doesn't get her own poster like the rest of them. It's kind of sexist to me, but oh well.
the sexist man.
And speciesist.
Yeah,
And another thing I liked was that while they did do the post-apocalyptic thing from the first one again, they at least kind of showed how it affected the people,
yeah. Because the
or at
first
least
time
the
around, it was
important
just
people.
controlled. This time, people knew about it.
I do kind of hate how they did the misunderstanding thing in that movie, though,
The first
for
one,
like 40 minutes of it.
the first movie.
No, in this one.
What do you mean?
Like how whenever SpongeBob blows the bubble and carries him and Plankton away from the crowd that was like ganging up on
Oh
Plankton.
yeah, that.
Yeah, Mr. Krabs pretty much assumes that SpongeBob is a traitor now, and then they're wanted for like most of the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, it allows for some character growth between the two of them, but I don't know. It just felt like it was trying too hard to do that
S-
kind of
Speaking
cliche.
of Plankton, I'm actually surprised on how much he developed throughout this movie.
I like how it was kind of focused on him. I mean, like,
Yeah,
I guess it kind of makes sense to
yeah,
have it focus on a different character since the first one, while this one has no continuity to the first one and it's kind of just like a side project to the current seasons of the show.
hmm
It like it had to focus on somebody.
No, speaking of the no continuity thing, I love how the movie ends, just turning things back to normal.
Almost back to normal since there's
Yeah,
still Squidosaurus
this
Rex.
yeah, Squidosaurus Rex. And it would be amazing if that actually appeared in an episode.
That would be great.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that actually did happen.
Had the song that I was talking about that kind of fits with what SpongeBob is not been cut out, it probably could have showed some continuity with the first movie
I guess.
because it has like a little Easter egg in there if you paid enough attention to the mustaches from the first movie.
Yeah. And I also found that the animation was very creative in a lot of aspects.
I loved the animation.
I point to the SpongeBob brain scene in particular.
I loved that part. That was fucking trippy.
And he just Plankton comes out. He's like full of cotton. He's like SpongeBob's like, "Hey, have you been in my brain?"
It kind of reminds me of the episode in Spongiac. It may not be the best episode to most people, but I kind of liked how they played around with it and it got really surreal at some points, if you remember.
Yeah. His freak out when Plankton was just called off the team reminded me of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 6, where he's like throwing the trash can and stuff.
Did somebody say boom?
Yeah. No, he's like mixing the garbage and the recycling.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's like that part. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, where he pulled out the ground and he ate worms.
Yeah.
That kills me every time I watch that episode.
Yeah. Speaking of Sandy, the one thing I do like is how she treats the page that fell in the water as an actual god thing. It was funny.
Yeah.
It's like I even said to myself, Sandy's a woman of science. Why is she believing in some god now?
Well, that's another thing that I kind of like about this because it's like it's trying to be realistic in a sense. Because sometimes, and I'm not trying to generalize here, atheists go to religion and stuff whenever things are getting dire because they feel like it'll make things better. Oh, great, there he is. Where was I?
Don't worry, I'll when I'm done recording, I'll edit this in Audacity. I'll cut the whole minute out.
All right.
We were at. Oh yeah, we were talking about Sandy. It kind of
Right.
reminds me of what happened to me this like last week actually. How I thought there were. How I'm thinking there's a god now.
Yeah. I mean, I may be a Christian, but I kind of feel like, they're probably not a god. They're
Yeah.
probably not. I mean, You can't disprove it, but anyway, back to SpongeBob.
I actually kind of like how the movie itself, when I was watching it, and the pirate was reading it from the book, I actually thought that would have been the whole story, but no, it that actually coincides with the what's actually going on.
I liked that better than what I thought it was going to be, which is what most people thought it was going to be, that the secret formula may have been the last page of the book and they had to get it back, and that might have actually revealed what it was finally after what, 17 years almost now?
Uh,
16 years?
16. Yeah.
Right. 16 as of May 1st,
Jeez.
2015.
Yeah, I actually thought
16.
that would have happened too, but then they used the whole rewriting it as to like make up the story, and I thought that was pretty cool.
I liked how the title was so misleading.
Yeah, it's like false advertising because you're thinking most of the movie will be about that, but no, it's
Yeah,
actually
for most of
more.
the movie they're just messing around on the bottom of the sea.
Yeah, I could just imagine like the marketing of the people who marketed it just be like, "We got them reeled in." They're thinking they're seeing some CGI SpongeBob movie, but no, they're seeing a traditionally animated SpongeBob movie. But then the CGI will come at the last third of the movie.
And that's another thing that I like. It kind of threw people off because most people thought it would be like those terrible CGI hybrid films like Alvin and the
And
Chipmunks,
Smurfs.
Garfield, and other stuff like that. And then now it's out and it's barely CGI and it's more traditional animation, making traditional animation more
Irrelevant.
relevant nowadays since you don't see any of those anymore. And that's what I liked about it. It kind of like people were mad about it at first, and then they finally grew on it, especially now knowing that Stefan Hillenburg is on the project.
And then all of the pre-movie SpongeBob turrets came back for that.
Yep, all was at peace, but then the Fire Nation had to come ruin it.
The Earth is on its axis correctly.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then again about it being an everything movie, it's kind of interesting how this movie was a liar, well not a liar revealed. It was more of a time travel movie than it was about an adventure movie. Then it was about a superhero movie. It goes all over the place, which could be a criticism to the movie because it has almost no real direction. But then again, SpongeBob has always been a series that it's always been random, and that's one of my appeals to it. So the movie draw that aspect perfectly.
One thing I liked about it, in comparison to the first movie, was that while the first movie was a buddy comedy, the new movie is like, yeah, like you said, all over the place. It has no real direction, and it kind of fits in like a majority of genres.
Yeah,
Sure, it cashed in on like a couple of gimmicks like CGI, live action, and the superhero thing where they become Avengers style superheroes, which was actually more of a funny sequence than an actual action
yeah,
sequence. And I liked how the superhero powers were a reference to an aspect of the character.
yeah,
Like SpongeBob, he likes bubbles. Patrick likes ice cream. That was like a reference to the Goofy Goober things. That was like maybe referenced once after the movie in the show.
I don't remember Gooby Goober's ever mentioned that in the movie.
It was in Clash of Triton, so you wouldn't know.
All right. Yeah, for the record, I haven't seen SpongeBob since season 7, but I have seen some season 9 episodes like Plankton's Pet. So
And it's a SpongeBob Christmas after
yeah,
I
that
kind of
was a
pushed you into
great.
watching
Yeah, that
that.
was a great Christmas special.
That's why it's like one of my favorite episodes
It
of this
didn't
show.
the movie also do stop motion at one point?
Yeah, it had
That
Bubbles the
was in the
dolphin. That was
braid
stop
sequence,
motion.
right?
Um, yeah, I think so. Like
Yeah,
whenever
cause
they met Bubbles the dolphin, that was all stop motion. I think, or he
yeah.
was stop motion.
No,
Um,
I like Bubbles because he gets fired, but he's all like thankful for it because he doesn't have to watch over the universe anymore.
that sounds like a boring job anyway.
Yeah, I think he even said that too, if I remember correctly.
Let's see. I like how they don't have a human companion that aids them when they go on land.
I was disappointed because I was expecting David Hasselhoff again.
That would be
Yeah,
great.
that would have been
Or
awesome.
like they could have had Slash actually have a point since he was in the first trailer of the movie. and that could have been his point. But I guess that would kind of
Be filler.
ruin how they did go on land and do all that stuff.
Yeah, that's something that also surprised me is that there was no filler because usually for some modern SpongeBob episodes there tends to be a lot of filler that doesn't need to happen, and I was surprised
Yeah.
that there wasn't much or any filler in this movie.
Well, it was written by Hillenburg, so
Yeah. Yeah, I also just like how the beginning of the movie is literally like it reminds me of like Plan Z,
it
only like
reminds me of kind of like the first one with how they started it.
mhm. Only it
It
just got
seemed more
off
like
much
Pirates of the
faster.
Caribbean instead of SpongeBob.
Yeah. Only in comparison to the first movie, this one starts off a lot faster.
Definitely a lot faster. And
Hmm.
there's more live action actually. I'm
Yeah,
surprised
there's a lot more
because
live action.
they actually credited Antonio Banderas before SpongeBob, which makes no sense to me.
Uh oh yeah, speaking of those end credits, I actually flipped when I saw Flats there in the screen.
Yeah, I did too. I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's Flats." I was happy to see Bubble Bass in the movie
Oh
himself.
yeah, I saw Bubble Bass too.
And did you see Squidward do his little dance from that
Yeah,
one
I did too.
episode?
That was awesome.
And the rap battle was my favorite
Yeah.
part of the movie. That was
No,
the
I
best
distinctively
part.
remember in the theater when Squidward's dance came, I was like, no talent, no talent.
Yes, perfect. I didn't even say that. Oh,
And
that
with Bubble
reminds
Bass, I was
me.
like, hey, Bubble Bass, you're sitting on my friend.
Yes.
Hey, Bubble Bass.
I know he did actually appear in another episode that
I
was
was
made after the
expecting a
movie.
pickle gag too.
Yeah. He did actually appear in another episode where the remember the one where Plankton got another eye? If you've seen that one.
Which season was this?
I don't remember what season, but I do remember Plankton got one of SpongeBob's teardrops and gave himself another eye so that he could have more depth
I don't think
perception.
I got that far.
If you do get a chance, it actually was a decent episode in my opinion.
What's it called?
Um, I'll have to look it up later and I'll tell you.
The Spongeopedia.
SpongeBob Encyclopedia or
Yeah,
whatever it is,
Encyclopedia Dramatica.
whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and again, another thing I was a bit surprised by was that uh, something that actually kind of threw me off a bit of the movie was how the time travel thing started. Because at first I was a bit worried that they would just like wander off, but they actually don't. In fact, I actually like the first sequence where they go forward in time like 4 days and already the world's dead.
That was great.
It's like,
I
how far
love
did we
how
go?
during the
Four
time travel
days?
sequence they managed to work in. You okay?
Yeah, repeat that.
I like how they like managed to work in the new song that Pharrell composed for the movie.
Yeah, they did that in the end credits too.
Yeah, I like that. And they were all dancing to that. And Pearl even says, "Oh, this dance is so last season." Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. That was great.
Hey, somebody had to do it.
That's true. One thing I did like about the credits was that since I stayed until like the ending, was that they actually said dedicated to Ernest Borgnine. Sure, it was 3 years late, but it was still really nice of
I
them to
actually
do.
didn't stick that far.
Well, it happened.
Oh, that's cool.
It kind of reminds me of the first one, which was actually dedicated to apparently Stefan Hillenberg's mentor, who died about a year before the first one came out in 2003.
Wasn't that when the first trailer came out?
I probably.
Because I remember
It's been
seeing it
so
around that
long.
time. And then this one, it doesn't feel like much of a sequel as much as it feels like its own story,
Yeah,
which is going to
that's
cause
what kind of
confusion in the
disappointed me about
timeline
it.
if you make a timeline.
Yeah,
Because
that's what kind of
apparently,
disappointed me about
isn't
it.
the timeline like every season and then this movie and then, the first movie? Because I don't know.
Probably. That's probably what it's going to end up being, unless they actually distinctly reference this movie in the next season. Then we'll have somewhat of a timeline. Because pretty much every season, including this movie now, since it didn't really connect anything to the first one,
I don't think it
takes
needed
place before
to.
the first movie.
I don't think it needed to do that, honestly, because I thought that would have detracted it a little bit.
I mean, like, Yeah, I guess, but maybe that's why they cut out the song, which would have had like maybe the only connection to it.
Yeah. I wonder if they will release like a cut of the movie
I
for
hope they
DVD.
do,
Yeah.
because that would actually confirm that it was meant to be a sequel somewhat.
Yeah, because I think cutting material out of a movie, unless it's filler or doesn't add anything, shouldn't be removed. Although from what I hear, not any material that was cut didn't really detract from the experience, so that's okay.
Yeah, Slash being cut, that didn't really detract from it. He could have easily been out of the movie, and I'm glad that he was out of the movie because he just felt so out of place in the trailer.
Hmm.
And that's saying a lot considering the movie has them go CGI, which actually looks really good.
Well, Nickelodeon has always been good with animation, so
Well, yeah,
see,
sort of.
SpongeBob always seems to get the top treatment. Like he gets really good stop motion animators, he gets pretty good traditionally animated animators, and he got good CGI animators for this movie.
Yeah, definitely. I love how Sandy actually has details in her fur for when she goes CGI.
Well, it's 2015. You better have detail.
Yeah, even if it's meant to be cartoony.
Hmm.
And I love how when they interacted with the human objects, they didn't really do that much of it. I mean, all they did was a bicycle, a cart, a couple of people, but they didn't really do anything important, which is
No,
good. The only really important human
it
is the
was
villain, Burger Beard, who was played by a very over the top Antonio Banderas.
Antonio Banderas is great.
That's just, yes, definitely. With how over the top he was.
And one of the birds reminded me of the penguins of Madagascar. Actually,
Oh my
like
gosh.
the very detailed eyed one, the blue eyed one, a
Oh
private.
yeah.
Yeah,
I know exactly which one you mean too, Private. It's sad that Nick canceled that show.
they did.
Yeah,
Oh,
they eventually just ended up canceling it, and I guess that this movie that they made from DreamWorks is like different from it.
well, at least yeah, the villain itself. If I had to point out a weak aspect, it was sort of him because
He
uh
wasn't really threatening
no,
because of how he was done, which
yeah,
was meant for more comedy than to be threatening like Plankton was in the first one.
yeah.
And since Plankton is more of a hero in this one than the antagonist, they had to find a new overly hammy villain. And
Hmm.
since they really made Plankton go really hammy after the movie was made, yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah,
So I
that
guess that they figured, you know, we've already made, or they've already made Plankton really hammy in the seasons after the movie, so why not make him more of a hero this time?
yeah.
Or actually developing character a bit.
Yeah, there was a gag I liked during the movie. It was the teamwork gag. He has a hard time saying teamwork. He goes like
TM
TM
work.
work, and I actually made a Pokemon
Time bomb.
joke because it's like you got TM work.
You got TM worked.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the Fun song.
Yeah, that's pretty much what this movie is. Because I noticed that there were explicit references to episodes made prior to 2004.
I didn't
And like,
catch many, to be honest.
I caught a bunch, not just in the credits.
What? Which? Name an example.
Well, first off, the fact that they became superheroes was from the like third or
Merman
fifth
Barnacle
super.
Boy.
Or, yeah. Um,
Want to see me run
second
over this rock?
was
You want to see me
what?
do it again? Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah, I like how Mr. Krabs was a robot, just
Yeah.
like SpongeBob said. And then Sandy became an actual squirrel, which was interesting.
No, I
It kind of
remember with
made you wonder
Mr.
why.
Krabs, a superhero. I actually made a reference to imitation Krabs,
That's what it was meant to be.
or the other episode where Squidward and SpongeBob think he's a robot and they end up smashing a lot of his stuff.
That was only imitation crabs. Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
You sure?
They didn't do another
Because
one.
there was a different episode about that too. There was there was one episode about Plankton having a robot Mr. Krabs, and there was an episode where SpongeBob and Squidward thought Mr. Krabs was a robot from the radio show.
That was imitation crabs only.
You sure?
Yeah,
All right. Well,
I should know. I am the SpongeBob super fan after all.
you're in the SpongeBob fan club by Patchy.
Yeah, apparently it took him, what, 14 years to make it because I just joined in like 2013 or something.
It's like, why? What took him so long?
I don't know.
He's like the only fan. He's like at Nickelodeon Studios. I was disappointed that there was no Patchy reference, but yeah.
I didn't get why neither of these movies had Patchy in
Yeah,
it.
like
I mean,
what?
they have
But
pirates in it,
why?
but not Patchy.
I
That
also
doesn't make
remember
any
reading
sense.
somewhere that a third movie is possible.
I hope not,
Why?
honestly. Well, this one, both of them kind of feel like they're finalizing things.
Well, more
Like,
so the first one than this one. This
yeah,
one
more
just
so
felt
the
like a
first
big
one than this
episode.
one. But this one definitely did feel like it was kind of finalizing some stuff, even though there is going to be a season 10, I'm sure.
Yeah. And I'll see that season because,
I was
this
going to
movie
watch it
pretty
whether
much proved
Hillenberg
to
was
me
back
that
or not.
it was great.
And then this movie, we can both agree, makes up for Ninja Turtles last year.
I'd have to see what the sequel has to offer for that. But as I said before, when it comes to Ninja Turtles, the show is great, but the movie was just abhorrent.
Abhorrent. That's how somebody who we both know who hates Amazing Spider-Man movies.
Well, those movies are dead now, so it's not like we care
Pretty
anymore.
much. Pretty much.
So it's
That's how he
like,
described 50 Shades of Grey, that it was abhorrent. I wouldn't want to see it anyway.
who doesn't? I mean, just to point it out there, I actually brought, like, my now date over to see SpongeBob as a way of just saying, we don't need to see this movie to have a good Valentine's Day.
And surprisingly, you ended up having a girlfriend by the end of this movie.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yes.
Because we
Because
both
when you think
agreed that we
romance,
were
you
not
think
going.
square.
Yeah, because we agreed that we were not going to see 50 Shades of Grey because we knew it would be terrible.
Who would want to see that?
No one.
I doubt it'll get any good box office results.
It probably will, and since there's two other movies coming out, we can pretty much say that this is our next Twilight.
Yes, it's pretty much just Twilight porn.
The Twilight 2.0.
Oh no.
Oh, great. Just when we thought it was over, it
It
resurrected.
reared its ugly head,
Yeah.
and then they all died.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Another reference to for the past episodes, when Patrick was sleeping while guarding the key to Karen, and they were trying to tell the bedtime story, I actually made two references. The first one was how much noise was being made, and me saying, "Wow, Patrick is sure a heavy sleeper." And the
Oh
other
yeah,
one,
now I remember that. Yeah, now I remember that episode.
yeah, and the other one was when Plankton was trying to tell him a bedtime story. I said, "This is the story of the ugly vorticle."
Oh, perfect.
I think that one was a little bit. I think that one was stretching it, considering that the Patrick sure is a heavy sleeper was definitely the more obvious joke.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they were making all this noise, and like in that episode, like every time SpongeBob moved, glass shattered. I don't know how, and then he just says Patrick is a heavy sleeper, and that wakes him up.
Well, it's supposed to be random, so.
Yeah. Because again, like, after the movie, I was just really happy that I managed to. It taught me that not only is the show getting better, but they proved that they still care about SpongeBob because it's one of the most
Yeah,
successful
exactly.
shows that's ever come on.
Yes, exactly. Like, it's it's one of the only 90s Nick shows
It's the
and
only
shows that's
90s
actually
Nick show
managed to
that's still
escape the
alive.
90s and make it past 2005.
Yeah, it's the only 90s Nick show that's still alive.
And the only 90s show, I believe. Or
Yeah.
one of them. That started in the 90s, not like Simpsons.
Simpsons was teetering towards the 90s. Like, it was
And
just
Family Guy did
very
start in the 90s, I
close.
think.
Wait, Family Guy started in the 90s, I think.
I think the same year that SpongeBob did.
Hmm. I haven't seen too much Family Guy, but I've seen some pretty shitty episodes from there.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because I just don't think Family Guy is that funny. Or maybe it is. It was. It's just I just ran into some bad episodes.
Yeah.
It's like seeing SpongeBob on TV. You're like, oh, sweet SpongeBob. What episode is this? And you see it's from season 7.
Well, not all of season 7 is terrible, like I said, because like I'd say maybe 80% of season 7 through 9 are bad. Or no, 6 through 8.
6 through 8.
Yeah, and 9 is starting to get or started to get the
Yeah,
show
I've
back on
heard.
track.
I've seen a couple episodes from 9, and they do look like they're getting back on track.
Yeah, and then seasons 4 and 5 are still not that bad. They're still good
I
seasons.
consider season 4 to be on par with the first 3, and season 5 to be average, or at least decent.
And then we have this movie here that shows that SpongeBob can work in any generation and then anybody can enjoy it,
Yeah, because
which
the
is
kids were laughing. My Dane and I were laughing. The adults were laughing.
yeah, it was like an everyone
You
movie.
know, it's like yeah, because that's the biggest praise I can give it is that it's an everything movie, and there's something to like. Like if you don't like one thing about it, there's something else you'll like.
One thing I definitely liked about this movie was that it didn't have any like non-subtle sexual innuendos like the first one did that really weren't funny at all.
Well, they're forced at the time.
And then I also like how this movie just shows that SpongeBob has made such an impact on the world that he can still be successful even though his show isn't getting a good track record nowadays. And you know how I am with the episodes like, oh, well, some of them, they're not all that bad. People say, like, people really do exaggerate about the
You're
episodes.
crazy, crazy! I tell you. I'll show you.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's funny how both our heroes got like such a big publicity boost this month. Spider-Man heading back to Marvel and SpongeBob getting this movie.
If this movie breaks 1 billion, I won't be surprised. But if it doesn't, then
The first
I
one made
won't be.
like under 100 million, I think.
It made a little over 100 million, yeah. And on a $30 million budget, that
That's extremely successful.
well, it's SpongeBob. Kids
Yeah.
will eat that up, of course. I
Well,
still have my old SpongeBob doll here sitting on my bed that I've had since like forever.
yeah. The movie itself has also been getting pretty solid reviews. Like not extremely stand out. Like not like tens or stuff, but sevens, eights. You know,
Six is pretty
yeah,
much.
generally pretty good. Yeah.
I wouldn't say that it's better than the first one or worse than the first one either because that's really not a fair comparison to
All
me.
right. So far, its box office has been on a 74 million budget. It's almost hitting
You mean
150
66
million.
million?
No, I'm looking at Wikipedia. It's like 74 million.
I
So,
thought it was 66 million.
well, either way, it's like over half of that at this point. It's like 149.4 million
And
so
it
far.
hasn't been, what, 2 weeks yet?
It hasn't even been 2 weeks. And
And this has already blown everything else out of the water.
no pun intended.
Actually, pun was
Oh,
intended.
all right. And it had like a 93-minute runtime, but I actually thought it was 2 hours.
It felt long. Yeah,
It felt
definitely.
long,
Once again,
but
it felt long.
then again, it felt long, but then it just sort of like picked up a bit.
Stopped.
Yeah, it just stopped going slow and started to pick up around the time travel plot, which I just love the animation in those sequences.
The fact that they referenced 2001 A Space Odyssey just surprised me. I was like, wow, that's a reference to 2001 A
Yeah,
Space
I
Odyssey.
thought they were gonna reference the episode where Squidward goes to the future.
That would have been great.
No, I would have loved it if Plankton went to one room and then he like comes out shut up and SpongeBob goes, oh, that was the can opener. That time travel's on the right. Two
SV129.
died. Yeah, that's one of my personal favorites of season 1.
I love how Plankton when he becomes a superhero, he becomes giant. That was a nice little reference and even a nice parody of the Hulk.
Yeah. He has my favorite name. It's just his name.
Plankton.
Plankton, yeah.
My favorite name has to be Invincible. No,
Hmm.
Mr. Super Awesome is definitely
Yeah.
and Best Power.
Hmm.
Patrick was hilarious in this episode, or not episode, but movie. I'm sorry,
Yeah, this movie. Hmm.
it's hard to say
It
movie
feels like an
because
extended episode, but I don't care. It gave me I had a good time with it.
yeah, unlike the first one, this one was like on a much smaller scale, which is good.
Yeah,
I like how it didn't try and be bigger than the first one
yeah,
because
cause
I
I,
hate when movies that are like follow-ups or sequels try and do that. I'm still gonna call this SpongeBob 2 even though it's not a sequel
well, it's the
because
second movie, so you might as well just call it SpongeBob Movie 2.
I don't know why they didn't do that and just I don't know.
Uh,
Maybe it would have confused people because it has nothing to do with the first one.
yeah. I have noticed compared to the first movie, this isn't nearly as huge on scale, but I do like that they aren't trying to top it, because if there's one thing, especially like third movies do, is that they try to make it even bigger, and while that isn't a bad idea, it doesn't
Dark
tend
of the
to,
Moon.
yeah, it doesn't tend to end up working. In
It
fact, it just
does.
makes things worse.
Yeah, it not only makes it more retarded, but it also like in Transformers case, like I just said, it just extends the runtime even more than the last one.
And if you
And
thought those
considering the
movies
second
were,
one was already trying to be way too big to begin with, trying to top it is even worse.
did Age of Extinction try to do that too?
Definitely.
Was that one even
I'm
longer?
busy right now. What are you doing? I'm talking to somebody. I'll let you know whenever I'm done. What? Because we're talking about the new SpongeBob movie and it's spoilers, so I don't think we want spoilers. Meaning stuff that happened in the movie that we know but you don't. Sorry about that. My cousin came into my room.
Well, yeah. With that in mind, I think the recorder's been going on for almost 40 minutes, and this was intended to be a pretty short podcast. So we'll wrap things up by giving up our final thoughts on the movie. So I'll go first. I will say that Sponge Out of Water, regardless if it's better or not as good as the original movie was, it was still a very good time. The fact that it was an everything type of movie may turn some people off that say that it has no real direction or focus, but the plot itself is really focused. The movie is tightly written, and the fact that it was just entertaining as it was just made me happy that that SpongeBob was getting back on track.
My thoughts on this film,
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to say it's better or worse than the first one because they're a decade apart.
Mm-hmm.
That's not really a fair comparison to me. So I'd say they're both good in their own generation. They both work well. Um, yeah, they're both tightly written. This one definitely felt more like an extended episode. I like how they didn't take too much of the 3D CGI gimmick because that was obviously just to cash in on the gimmick. Like it was really unneeded. Um, this is probably tied as my favorite film of all time with the first one,
And before Fanboy.
of course. And while it didn't really change my life in any way because I already know that it's great to work on a team, unlike the first one, which kind of I credit to making me the person who I am today, able to think for himself, be a man, take a stand, um, and all that good stuff, while still being myself, as childish as I am, saying that I love a movie about a talking sponge. Oh, but that's because the show's changed my life in so many ways. Yeah, I love this movie. I just thought
Yeah,
it was a great film. It
yeah, it
was a
was
nice
great.
experience. It gave me so much nostalgia because having seen the first one, like when I was 5 years old, because I was born in December, and I would have been six at the point when I saw it. And then to come back over 10 years later, almost a grown man seeing this, it's like my childhood's come full circle with this movie.
Mm-hmm.
and like having been following the show since the beginning nonstop because this show made me the person that I am. It just feels so great to see it in theaters again, and then like to see them kind of do some of the same things that the first one did, like them not going on land for very long. That was done in the first one already. Um, the pirates in the beginning from the first one. They had the same voice cast from the first one. Still have been doing it for like 16 years now. We're almost 17 now. Like we've been following this show since we were in diapers, and then to see all the little kids that love this movie because they like to watch the episodes of SpongeBob, and little kids are more fair to the show than most people are because they don't know that people use the first movie to drive a wedge between the show instead of treating it like a whole, and then they make the first three seasons seem like perfection when you and I can both admit that there are some episodes that we didn't like or that were really not good.
Like Texas.
Yes, definitely. Or The Sponge You Could Fly, Dumped, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 4, those kinds of episodes. Those weren't very good episodes the first three seasons. And
Yeah.
then people, to me, feel like get biased when it comes to SpongeBob, and they like to use the negatives to affirm their points. And they use episodes like One Course Meal or
How for
um,
Gary.
yeah, to affirm their points about the episodes made after the movie, and that really isn't fair to me because that's like saying, oh well, I guess that means that it's fair for me to use episodes like Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 4, Dumb Texas, whatever. I was a teenage Gary to say, oh well, because those episodes are bad, then the entirety of the first three seasons of SpongeBob are bad. No, that's wrong. I would say that as a whole, from seasons one to present, the show is decent. It's kept a decent tone, whether it be that the new or the newer seasons have less hits than the original seasons. I don't like to drive a wedge between things. I like to judge things as a whole. And with me, that's just the only way it's fair. Like, you and I both know that there are bad movie episodes or bad episodes made before and after the movie, and we don't use either of these movies to drive wedges between the show
No.
because that would make us idiots. And then every time I hear somebody say that nothing or like zero good has come from after the movie or seasons four to present, I'd say, oh, well, obviously this person hasn't given the show a chance, or, oh, well, they haven't seen It's a SpongeBob Christmas, which, like we said, is an amazing episode of the show,
Mhm.
whether it be from your so called classic episodes or not. But yeah, I don't like using those kinds of labels of classic and modern. It's like Sonic. We can both
Yeah.
agree there is no classic or modern Sonic. It's just Sonic.
Mhm.
And there's no reason to make the comparison. One
Exactly.
thing I always hate is that people even make the comparison in character design. One of the stupidest videos I've ever seen of SpongeBob is where somebody pretty much took the character designs from, I guess, season one and compared them to the current at the time character designs, which to me felt stupid, mostly because their character designs kind of change every season a little bit. Not just SpongeBob's, but most of theirs. Like in season one, Sandy, she didn't have her tail showing, and then after that season, they have her tail showing. It's like little things like that that make you wonder. People will find anything to like complain about. They just complain about the small things over the big things, and then that makes them sound biased by comparison to an actual fair criticism of actually judging as a whole.
Bitch, bitch, moan, whine.
That's pretty much how the average pre-movie SpongeBob tard. Copyright. me and Christian, by the way, because
Mhm.
we came up with that word together.
Yeah.
Um, that's pretty much how they operate. They say, "Oh, well, season one, two, three are the best things ever, and everything after that is since it's different, it doesn't deserve to be called SpongeBob."
It's
It's
like
the same
Brawl and
show,
Melee people. It's like Melee tarts use Brawl as an example to say it's bad because it's not Melee,
which isn't
which
fair.
is bullshit. And then Smash 4 is, the balance of the two, and yet there are still people who say it's bad because it's not Melee. It's kind of
People
like
who say
that.
that the new game is bad, they're honestly, I'm convinced that they're idiots because I've played both versions of that game and it is amazing.
Yes, it's amazing, I tell you. This game's amazing.
Exactly. And with SpongeBob, like we said about this movie, it's an everything show.
Hmm.
It caters to everyone. Like the older episodes, if you're an adult and you kind of are nostalgic with them, those are for you. If you're a kid and you don't really judge based on wedges and think, oh, well, I don't really care if it changed because to me, kids are more accepting and then they kind of lose that mindset after a while because they start to get nostalgic, like I am with How to Train Your Dragon books versus the movie. Um, yeah, that's kind of how it is. Most people are just holding on to their nostalgia and they're kind of afraid to admit or make a clear judgment on their thoughts because they want to conform and think the same as everyone else.
Yeah.
And like I don't like to do that.
I,
If I were to if I were to say that seasons 4 through the present of SpongeBob has no good episodes, I would be lying to myself and I would make myself a hypocrite because
mhm.
some of my favorite episodes of the show have come from after the movie. And if I were to make a top 10 worst list, because I do enjoy a majority of episodes made of the show, it would be a mix of episodes made before and after the movie. Because, like I said, I enjoy a majority of the episodes. And to me, SpongeBob as a character has always been a symbol of hope. And like I said before, most people who might like still be willing to give the show a chance. Some people might say, "Oh, well, the damage has been done." Even the creator coming back for the next season, season 10, and the fact that it's starting to get better with season 9 won't really save it. Those people don't really understand what the point of SpongeBob as a character is, and I can't really call them fans of the show. In good faith, I can't say that they are a fan of SpongeBob because they are missing the exact point of what SpongeBob is and what he stands for. For a second, this doll, if you can see it, with its pants hanging down,
Yeah, I see it.
it represents hope. The
Yeah.
fact that it's lasted this long, it represents hope.
How long have you
Trying
had
not to
that?
show my face. I've had it since me and my brother watched the show together. That's another reason the show like sits well with me for so long because me and my brother, this was the only thing. This thing right here, this
Hmm.
was the only thing we had in common. And now you can see my face, hooray! Um, yeah, this was the only thing we had in common together back when I was growing up. And then when he left, this kept me company. This guy here, he helped me. He helped me through the hard times. I don't like hearing bad about him. I don't like seeing him get hurt
Hmm.
because he's like a second father to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that I'm gonna still keep all that in. I'm just gonna have to call it SpongeBob Water Podcast, and then plus, like, it's like some rant of some kind.
Yeah,
Still,
but my
uh,
thoughts on Sponge Out of Water. Long story short, I love the film. It's not better or worse than the first one. They're both good in their own generation. They both prove that SpongeBob can work in any generation. Um, they both, or this one is like kind of what SpongeBob stands for, and what I just said, how he stands for hope, and like people who are just now coming back to the series after being out of it so long kind of missed the point of that.
yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say. My other favorite film of all time.
Yeah.
Both SpongeBob movies are my favorite films of
Yeah.
all time.
Thanks for being on here, man. I really appreciate it.
It's no big deal.
If there's any other movie or anything you want to talk about here, we could set up another podcast for another time.
We should do it for Age of Ultron just
Yes,
because
Age of Ultron.
I haven't seen the first Avengers movie since like I saw it in theaters like 3 years ago. So
Yeah. All right. So this has been our Sponge Out of Water podcast. Thank you for listening.
shout
And
out to Leopold Lichenstein. That's my channel. Look out for the Pikachu SpongeBob face.
Peekabob.
Yes, Pikabob is love. Pikabob is life.
Life.
Gotta love
Yeah.
that channel plug.
Yeah. And this has been both of us signing off.